The signal from Andromeda Outpost just stopped. One moment it was a steady stream of data. The next, nothing. A void of silence stretched across the starways. Deep space listening posts are our eyes and ears. They watch the lonely darkness between galaxies. Their silence is never a good thing. It usually means one of two things: a catastrophic system failure, or something far worse. The final data packet arrived corrupted. It was a ghost of a message. Most of it was just static, a hiss of dead air across light years. But nestled inside the noise was something else. A single, repeating tone. It was a clean, pure note. A signal so deliberate it made the skin crawl. It was not a natural sound. It was not a system error. It was a message. Or maybe a warning. Back at Sector Command, nobody could agree. The analysts ran 100 different simulations. They compared the tone to every known signal. It matched nothing in our databases. It was utterly alien. Some experts argued it was a beacon, a cry for help from the lost outpost. Others saw something more sinister, a lure, a siren song in the deep dark. The High Command decided to act. They could not leave a vital outpost dark. They needed answers, and they needed them fast. The mission was codenamed Shadowfall. A single light cruiser would be dispatched. Its job was to investigate the silence, to find out what happened to the crew, and to understand the meaning of that single haunting tone. That cruiser was yours. You are a specialist in deep space recovery. You have seen your share of silent stations. You have boarded ships that have gone dark. But this felt different. The tone from the data packet played on a loop in the briefing room. It seemed to burrow into your mind. A simple note that promised complex trouble. You packed your gear with a grim sense of purpose. The Andromeda galaxy felt a little darker today, and you were about to fly straight into its heart. The journey to the outpost was tense. Every crew member felt the weight of the unknown. We stared at the star charts. We watched the silent void ahead. The silence from Andromeda Outpost was a heavy blanket. It smothered the usual chatter on the bridge. We were a single ship, a tiny spear of light aimed at a great darkness. The repeating tone was our only guide, a single point of sound in an ocean of quiet. As you neared the outpost's coordinates, your ship's sensors screamed. They detected a massive object nearby. It was not the outpost. This was something else entirely. It was large, and it was drifting. The object was not on any star chart. It was an impossible phantom in the void. Your ship's captain ordered a slow approach. Caution was the only sane response to such a mystery. The view screen resolved the image. It was a ship, but like no ship you had ever seen. Its design was not human. It was not from any known star-faring race. The vessel was a derelict. Its hull was scarred and pitted, evidence of a battle lost long ago. It floated silently in the starlight, a ghost ship guarding a silent station. Where did it come from? What happened to its crew? Its architecture was all wrong. It was a twisted collection of curves and spires. The metal seemed to flow rather than being welded. It looked more grown than built. No lights shone from its ports. No energy signature pulsed from its core. It was a cold, dead thing. A tombstone floating in the endless night. Its presence here was a profound mystery, and a deeply unsettling one. Your mission was to investigate the outpost, but this ghost ship was now the primary puzzle. The captain agreed. The outpost could wait. Understanding this vessel was critical. It might hold the key to the station's silence. So you assembled your boarding team. The plan was simple. Board the derelict, find its logs, discover its secrets. Simple plans have a way of getting complicated, especially in the face of the truly unknown. The silence aboard the alien ship was absolute. It was a heavy, pressing quiet, the kind that makes you hear your own heartbeat. Your boots echoed on the strange metal deck. The air was cold and thin. It carried a faint, metallic scent. The ship was a tomb, and you were trespassing. Every shadow seemed to move. Every corner promised a new and terrible surprise. You and your team moved with caution. You checked your gear. You scanned the empty corridors. The ship was clearly abandoned. There were signs of a hasty evacuation. Panels were left open. Tools were scattered on the floor. It was as if the crew simply vanished. Vanished in the middle of their work. The feeling of wrongness grew with every step. Something terrible happened here. You could feel it in the very bones of the ship. You found the ship's bridge. It was a vast, cavernous space. The view screen showed a star field you did not recognize. The controls were dark. The systems were powered down. But there was one exception. A single console glowed with a faint light. It was the ship's log. It held the answers you sought. It held the story of this vessel's final journey. Your science officer worked to access the logs. The alien language was a complex puzzle, but the underlying code was based on mathematics, a universal language. After a tense hour, he broke through. The logs began to play on the main screen. They were a series of fragmented entries, a record of a desperate flight. The ship was not just a derelict, it was a refugee vessel. The logs showed images of a civilization you had never seen. Great, beautiful cities under a strange sun. The people were tall and graceful. Their technology was far beyond your own. But their world was burning. The logs showed a massive, shadowy fleet descending from their sky. The enemy was relentless. It was a swarm of darkness consuming everything in its path. The ghost ship was one of the last to escape. The final log entry was chilling. The ship's captain appeared on the screen. Her face was etched with fear and exhaustion. She spoke of a foe that could not be reasoned with, a force of pure destruction. She called them the Shadow, and they were hunting her people across the stars. Her final words were a warning. They are coming. They follow the echoes of our light. Do not let them find you. Then the log ended. The screen went dark, and you were left in the suffocating silence once more. The warning came too late. Just as the alien captain's final words faded, your own ship hailed you. The message was frantic. Long-range sensors have a massive contact, a fleet, and it is inbound. Fast. The knot in your stomach tightened. The Shadow was no longer a story from a dead alien's log. It was a clear and present danger. A danger that was racing toward your position. You returned to your ship immediately. The bridge was a storm of controlled chaos. The sensor readings were terrifying. The incoming fleet was huge. Hundreds of contacts. Maybe thousands. Their formation was precise. Their speed was incredible. They moved like a single, hungry organism, a swarm of starborn predators. And their trajectory was unmistakable. They were following the exact path of the ghost ship. The enemy fleet was not just coming to this sector. It was coming here, to this small patch of empty space, to this silent outpost and its mysterious derelict. The Shadow was not just a name from a log. It was a reality bearing down on you, a reality of overwhelming force. The captain looked at you. His face was grim. They found the Echo, he said. You knew exactly what he meant. The outpost commander was patched through on comms. You relayed the sensor data. You shared the alien ship's warning. You advised an immediate evacuation. The outpost was a research station. It was not a military fortress. It stood no chance against such a massive fleet. To stay was suicide, a fact that seemed obvious to everyone on your bridge. Everyone except the commander. He refused to leave. His voice was calm but laced with steel. "This outpost is a symbol of human expansion," he declared. "We will not run from shadows." He was an old soldier from a forgotten war. He saw this not as a pointless last stand. He saw it as a line in the sand. He would not give up this small rock without a fight. His courage was admirable, and perhaps incredibly foolish. You argued with him. You pleaded with him. You told him about the alien ship's fate. You described the overwhelming odds. He would not be swayed. "Humanity did not reach for the stars by running," he said. "Here we make our stand." His words had a strange effect on his crew. Their fear was replaced by a grim resolve. They would stand with their commander. They would fight for their home. Your own captain was now in an impossible position. His orders were to investigate, not to engage in a hopeless battle. But he could not abandon the outpost. He could not leave these brave, stubborn people to die alone. He made his choice. Your small cruiser and its crew would stay. You would stand with the outpost. You would face the shadow together. Andromeda's stand had begun. The first wave arrived exactly when the sensors predicted. They did not slow down. They did not broadcast any message. They simply appeared, a swarm of dark, organic ships. They blotted out the stars. Their forms were monstrous. Part machine, part creature. They were a nightmare given form. And they moved with a horrifying, silent grace. The outpost's defense grid opened fire. Lasers and missiles streaked across the void. They impacted the enemy ships. And they did nothing. The organic hulls of the enemy ships seemed to ripple. They absorbed the energy of the weapons. The lasers dissipated harmlessly. The missiles were swallowed by the strange flesh of the ships. It was like throwing stones at a tidal wave. The enemy did not even seem to notice. They continued their silent, inexorable advance. The first hint of real despair began to creep into the outpost's comms chatter. Then the enemy fired back. Their weapons were not lasers or plasma. They were beams of pure, black energy. They tore through the outpost's shields like paper. They sliced through the station's steel hull. The impacts were devastating. Entire sections of the outpost were ripped open to the vacuum of space. Explosions blossomed in the darkness. The station shuddered under the assault. The battle had barely begun, and it was already a slaughter. Your cruiser fought back with everything it had. Your weapons were more advanced than the outposts. They actually seemed to damage the smaller enemy ships. But there were too many of them. For every one you destroyed, 10 more took its place. They swarmed your ship. They latched onto your hull. They began to tear you apart piece by piece. The bridge was filled with the shriek of tearing metal and the cries of wounded crew. The station's corridors became a labyrinth of death. The enemy had breached the hull in a dozen places. Their soldiers poured into the station. They were not warriors in armor. They were hulking, insectoid creatures. They had multiple limbs, razor-sharp claws, and a hunger that burned in their alien eyes. The outpost's small security force was no match for them. The battle for Andromeda Outpost was now a desperate fight for survival. You were with the security team in the main concourse. You fought side by side with the station's crew. Your pulse rifle felt like a toy against these creatures. They were fast. They were strong. And they were utterly without fear. The corridors were a chaotic blur of flashing lights and frantic shouting. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and alien blood. You saw brave people fall. You saw hope begin to die. Every corridor became a choke point. Every doorway was a potential ambush. The security forces were pushed back, section by section, deck by deck. The creatures were relentless. They did not tire. They did not retreat. They only advanced. The command center was a cacophony of damage reports. The station was failing. The shields were gone. Life support was critical in multiple sectors. The end seemed terrifyingly close. Amid the chaos, a single voice of calm cut through the noise. It was the outpost's chief scientist. He had been working on the alien ghost ship's data. He had ignored the battle raging around him. He had focused on one thing, the final transmission, the one with the repeating tone. He believed there was more to it than just static and a single note. He believed there was a message hidden within the noise, a secret code. While the station burned, he worked. He applied every decryption algorithm he knew. He ran the signal through 100 different filters. The static was not random. It had a pattern, a complex, layered pattern. It was a lock, and the repeating tone was the key. He finally found it, a hidden layer of data buried deep within the transmission. It was a secret message from the alien captain, a final, desperate gift. The message was not in a language he could understand. It was a string of complex equations, a set of instructions, not for communication, but for activation. It was a command code, a key to unlock something on the ghost ship. The scientist realized the truth with a jolt of adrenaline. The alien vessel was not a refugee ship. That was a disguise. It was a weapon of incredible power hiding in plain sight. The scientist contacted you directly. His voice was breathless with excitement. He explained his discovery. The ghost ship was a trap, a Trojan horse left for the shadow. The repeating tone was not a distress call. It was a primer. It was meant to be found by someone with the technology to understand it, someone who could unlock the ship's true purpose. The code he had found was the final trigger. You had a choice to make. The battle was nearly lost. The station was falling apart. This was a long shot, a desperate gamble based on a dead alien's secret message. But it was the only shot you had. You gathered a small team. You had to get back to the ghost ship. You had to activate the weapon. It was a sliver of hope in a universe of despair. A tiny chance to turn the tide. Fighting your way back to the docking bay was a nightmare. The corridors were swarming with the enemy creatures. You were out of ammunition for your rifle. You fought with your sidearm, with your combat knife, with your bare hands. 2 of your team fell. You saw the life drain from their eyes, but you could not stop. You had to keep moving. The fate of everyone depended on it. You made it to the docking bay. Your small shuttle was still intact. You launched into the chaos of the battle. The space around the outpost was a graveyard of debris and dying ships. You dodged enemy fire. You weaved through the wreckage. Your destination was the silent, waiting ghost ship. The ship that was either your salvation or your tomb. You prayed it was the former. You boarded the ghost ship once more. The silence was still there, but now it felt different. It was not the silence of death. It was the silence of anticipation, the silence of a predator waiting to strike. You made your way to the bridge. The scientist guided you through the activation sequence. He read the alien code. You entered the commands into the glowing console. The ship began to hum, a deep, powerful thrum that vibrated through the deck. The ship's systems came online. Lights flickered to life. The main view screen glowed. It showed the swirling chaos of the battle outside. The ghost ship was no longer a ghost. It was awake, and it was hungry. A new icon appeared on the console, a weapon system. The scientist's voice was filled with awe. "It's a resonance cascade," he said. "It's designed to disrupt their organic technology." You looked at the firing control. It was time to give the shadow a taste of their own medicine. You pressed the button. The ship shuddered. A wave of invisible energy erupted from its hull. It washed over the battlefield. The effect was instantaneous. The smaller enemy ships convulsed. Their organic hulls seemed to liquefy. Their systems failed. They drifted aimlessly, their engines dead. The swarming cloud of fighters was suddenly a cloud of helpless, silent vessels. The tide of the battle had turned in a single, stunning moment. A cheer went up on the outpost's comms channel. The surviving security forces saw the enemy falter. They saw their chance. They rallied. They pushed back against the insectoid creatures. The creatures, now cut off from their ships, seemed disoriented, confused. Their relentless advance slowed. For the first time, they showed something other than mindless aggression. They showed a flicker of fear. The victory was short-lived. The resonance cascade had only affected the smaller ships. The larger enemy vessels were still intact. And now, the true enemy revealed itself. From the heart of the enemy fleet, a colossal ship emerged. It dwarfed everything else on the battlefield. It was a city-sized behemoth of organic and mechanical terror. This was the command ship, the heart of the shadow. A message was broadcast across all channels. It was not a voice. It was a projection of pure thought, a wave of psychic energy that crashed into your mind. It was a message of absolute, chilling certainty. You are a fleeting spark in a sea of darkness. We are the sea. We are eternal. Your existence is an error. We have come to correct it. The message was not a declaration of war. It was a statement of fact, a sentence of annihilation. The enemy command ship began to move. It ignored your small cruiser. It ignored the crippled outpost. It moved directly toward the ghost ship. It knew what you had done. It knew where the real threat lay. Its own weapons began to glow. They were charging with an energy that made your sensors scream. The command ship was going to destroy the ghost ship, and you with it. You were out of options. The resonance cascade was a one-shot weapon. It needed time to recharge. Time you did not have. The enemy command ship was a fortress. Your weapons could not scratch it. The outpost was on its last legs. Evacuation was impossible. The end was here. A final, crushing defeat at the hands of an incomprehensible foe. The hope you had felt just moments before turned to ash. Then, a new plan began to form in your mind. A desperate, insane, human plan. The ghost ship's power core was now fully active. If it was breached, it would detonate with the force of a small star. The resonance cascade was not the only weapon. The ship itself was a weapon. A massive, flying bomb. If you could get it close enough to the command ship, it might just work. It was a gambit. A final, desperate throw of the dice. But it was a one-way trip. The pilot would have to fly the ghost ship directly into the enemy's maw. They would have to stay at the controls to the very end, to ensure the detonation happened at the point of maximum impact. It was a suicide mission. A final, terrible sacrifice. You broadcast the plan to the captain of your cruiser and the outpost commander. There was a moment of silence. Then, a voice came over the comms. "I'll do it." It was a young pilot from the outpost, a woman you had shared a ration pack with just hours before. Her voice was steady, resolute. She had lost her family in the first wave. She had nothing left to lose, and everything to fight for. "They will remember this day," she said. "They will remember the light of soul." She did not wait for an argument. She was already on her way to the shuttle bay. You prepared the ghost ship for its final flight. You set the course. You programmed the core to overload on impact. All the pilot had to do was fly it straight and true. She arrived on the bridge. Her eyes met yours. There was no fear in them, only a fierce, burning determination. She placed her hand on the controls. "Tell them we did not go quietly into the night," she said. Those were her last words to you. You and your team evacuated the ghost ship. You returned to your cruiser. The bridge crew was silent. Every eye was on the main view screen. The ghost ship, with its lone pilot, began to move. It accelerated toward the colossal enemy command ship. The enemy fired its massive weapons. The ghost ship dodged. It weaved. The young pilot was a master. She flew with a grace and skill that was breathtaking. The ghost ship was hit. Its hull was breached. But it did not stop. It was a wounded beast, but it was still alive. It was still on course. The enemy command ship was a wall of fire and death. But the ghost ship flew on, a single point of light against an overwhelming darkness, a testament to the unbreakable spirit of a single human being. It was almost there. Just a few more seconds. Then, a flash of light. A light so bright it bleached the view screen white. A light that seemed to fill the entire universe. The light of a new star being born. The light of soul. The ghost ship had reached its target. Its core had detonated. The shockwave hit your cruiser. The ship screamed in protest, but it held. When the light faded, you looked at the view screen. The enemy command ship was broken. A massive chunk of its hull was gone. It was crippled, adrift. Its weapons were silent. The heart of the shadow had been shattered. The remaining enemy fleet was in disarray. Their command structure was gone. Their god was dead. They began to retreat, a scattered, broken swarm fleeing back into the deep space from whence they came. They did not look back. The battle for Andromeda Outpost was over. You had won. The silence that followed was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of awe and of grief. The cost had been high. The outpost was a ruin. Your cruiser was heavily damaged, and a brave pilot was gone, a hero who would be remembered forever. She had saved you all. She had given humanity a fighting chance. You looked out at the star field, at the retreating specks of the enemy fleet. This was not the end. The shadow was still out there. They were vast. They were ancient. And now they knew about humanity. They knew that we were not just a fleeting spark. We were a fire that would not be easily extinguished. The war had just begun, but you had won the first battle. And in the dawn after the shadow, there was a glimmer of hope.